Dreams. We're all born with them. Dreams of adventure, of finding a sense of purpose, meaning, of reaching our full potential. And wherever your dreams take you, your journey starts with UAC.
I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Hello and welcome to Let's Chat. Today we're going to talk with Dr. Jane Demetres from Headspace, and we're going to speak about mental health and the HSC. Hello, Jane. Welcome today. Really thank you for joining us to talk about mental health, which is certainly a very important topic. Could you tell me what mental health actually is and what does it mean to have a mental health problem?
Okay, thank you, Trudy. Mental health, we often think about our physical health, but more recently there's been a lot of focus on mental health. And our mental health basically includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. So it affects how we think, it affects how we feel, it affects how we act. It also determines how we manage stress, our ability to cope, how we relate to others, and how we make choices in our life. And everyone has mental health, but sometimes people struggle maintaining good mental health. And when that happens, we start to experience what we call kind of symptoms that start to impact on our life, whether that be low mood or anxiety or something else. Okay,
well, that's really great information to understand, Jane, because it can be really hard to determine whether you do have a mental health issue or not. Mm-hmm. Before we go further, can you just tell me a bit about you and where you are from and what you do at Headspace?
Sure. So I, by training, am a clinical psychologist, and I've been working with children and adolescents and young adults for over the past 12 years. I'm currently working as the clinical lead at Headspace Centre in Brookvale. So that I manage the kind of the clinical side of the work that we do, or the young person's journey through the centre in terms of the support that they're receiving from our team.
Fantastic. And I can imagine it'd be a really big job there looking after students in your area. But I know that Headspace covers the wider Sydney area, and do you go regionally as well?
Yeah, look, there are many Headspaces around Australia. Headspace is the National Youth Mental Health Foundation, and they have centres in metropolitan areas around every state in Australia and also in regional Australia.
Oh, that's fantastic news. Yeah. I just want to ask you a couple of questions now, if you don't mind. In Year 12, of course, we know that, it can be a really stressful year for students. Exam stress can be a big part of that Year 12, the end of Year 12. But how do we know if, how do you know if it's just exam stress or whether maybe it's anxiety or whether it's something a little bit more than that? Could you sort of elaborate on that for me?
Yeah, it's a good question. And as you said, stress and anxiety are normal parts of life and of being human. Mm-hmm. And they are especially common during Year 12 when there's a lot of demands being placed on young people. And however, like exam stress and anxiety do sometimes develop into something more serious, and it is important to know the difference in order to seek some support. The difference between normal exam stress and anxiety versus something more serious is when you experience symptoms that just are above and beyond the expected emotional response in that situation. So normal exam stress and anxiety might include feelings of nervousness, low-level fear or apprehension, and physical symptoms, including muscle tightening or increased heart rate, maybe some sweating, or butterflies in your tummy, which are quite typical symptoms, or even worrying thoughts about your ability to perform in exams. The thing is, though, these symptoms often don't negatively interfere with your daily functioning or your ability to prepare for exam situations or to sit exams. More serious stress and anxiety is characterised by more intense physical symptoms, such as a rapid heart rate, maybe shallow breathing, trembling, extreme feelings of fear that are out of proportion with the situation, feelings of irritability and anger, difficulty concentrating and remembering information, racing thoughts, which are often very anxious thoughts or very unhelpful thoughts, and often we'll see avoidance. So there may be avoidance of preparing for exams or doing exams. And these symptoms generally do impact your daily functioning, and they definitely have an impact on your ability to perform in exams.
Okay. So like when we talk about exam stress or anxiety, can anxiety and stress sort of present similar? You know, do they have sort of similar look about them?
Look, they do. They do have a similar look in terms of the physical symptoms. Maybe there might be degrees of irritability, anger, fatigue, sleep difficulties. The thing is, though, stress is typically caused by an external trigger, which may be short-term or it might be chronic. And stress is basically your response to the trigger or the pressure. And stress is usually characterised by feeling overwhelmed, and that may be due to your coping capacity being stretched, or having too much pressure for too long a period of time. Anxiety, on the other hand, is defined by persistent, excessive worries that don't go away even in the absence of a stressor. So anxiety does lead to nearly identical set of symptoms as stress. However, the fact that it's present when the stressor has been removed indicates that it's more anxiety.
Okay. So for a student who's coming up to exam times, they've been a bit sort of, it's coming along. I've been doing my studies. I'm doing okay. I'm feeling okay. It's the day before exams. They start feeling a bit nervous. That's really just stress, exam stress, or, anxiety around exams. It's not full-blown anxiety or stress that should be taken further if it keeps going. Would you say that?
Yeah, no, definitely. It's normal to experience stress and anxiety before exam situations. And in most situations, it can be quite helpful to have this experience of stress and anxiety, because it helps prepare us mentally and physically to be alert in the exam situation. So a moderate degree of anxiety and stress is actually quite helpful.
Okay. Oh, well, that's really good to know, because, I even know when I've had my own children, going through this whole scenario, they have their little bit of a feeling of being anxious before that exam. It's good to know that it's just a normal thing, and then, the day after you're back to feeling a lot more less stressed. And then sometimes you just walk out of the exam and you're feeling less stressed and less anxious. But that's anxiety. That's a normal part of life. How do we know if it keeps going on? How do we know if that is more than normal? What should we be looking out for in terms of that stress or anxiety?
I think what we need to be looking out for particularly is whether this the symptoms, say if it's anxiety, might look like excessive worrying and ruminating, difficulty concentrating. Oftentimes, when people are very anxious, it starts to impact their mood. So you might start seeing someone's mood drop. They might start withdrawing from social situations for the things that they enjoy. They might have changes in their sleep patterns or in their diet, irritability and anger. So if you start to notice that these things are lasting over a period of time, in particular maybe over 2 weeks or more, and they're really starting to show changes in their behaviour, how they're relating to others, how they're engaging in their usual activities, then I think that starts to tell you, well, this is a bit more than just being nervous or anxious about an exam and feeling the stress of that situation.
Okay, that's really good for us to know as parents and even students, because, sometimes we notice things and sometimes just think, oh, well, the exams are on, we'll just put it down to that. But it is good to know that if things progress more than just the normal stress or exam anxiety, that we might need to keep an eye on things and do something, to help. In saying that, what can we do? And I'm just talking exam stress at this stage. What can we do to help combat that, do you think? What's the best thing for a student to do to combat?
There are many things that students can do to help manage exam stress. I think preparing yourself as best you can for the exam, which means studying for the exam early enough and using effective study techniques that can help you learn and understand and remember the information, is very important in managing exam stress, because being well prepared helps increase a student's confidence going into the exam, and that's going to help keep the stress levels in check. Taking care of your body is a big one, so that you do have a healthy mind, because it's easy to forget to focus on our physical needs when we're feeling stressed or when we're super busy. So we often forget to eat well or sleep well or exercise. But the science is conclusive in terms of how critical it is to look after our bodies so that we're at our best physically, emotionally, and psychologically. And that includes having good sleep routines and good sleep hygiene, eating healthy meals, eating regular meals, not skipping meals, consistent exercise, and importantly, making the time to have some fun. Have some fun with your family and friends, very important. Having a balanced life is important, because if focusing on only one aspect of your life, such as study to the exclusion of anything else, is going to lead to burnout for sure. And learning to manage the physical symptoms of anxiety and stress through exercise, learning and practicing relaxation techniques, belly breathing or mindfulness activities. Reframing any negative or self-critical or unhelpful thoughts that make us feel more anxious, and even reframing our experience of anxiety and stress as normal and helpful to our study can give us the strength and energy to overcome some of these challenges. Being positive and kind to yourself by focusing on what you've accomplished. Even if it's a really small thing like, I managed to follow my study schedule today, and connecting with supportive people, family and friends, and talking to people if you're struggling and wanting some support.
That's fantastic advice, Jane, I have to say. And, that is something that we here at UAC, when we go out and talk to students, are always saying, with your study, get good study habits, take breaks, still enjoy your sporting activities. Don't shut yourself into a room and study for hours and hours and hours on end, because your brain just doesn't cope with it anyway. Quite often we see students who have, studied from, 7 o'clock in the morning, and they're still going at 3 a.m. in the morning, the next morning. And that's just not healthy at all for anybody. Even as adults, and if we work too long, we get that burnout. So that's really, really good advice. How can we determine, whoever it is, could be you, could be me as students, how does a person determine if their mood is something more than that exam stress? Because sometimes we don't identify with those things within ourselves, do we?
No, sometimes it's hard when you're actually in it to see what's going on, and it might be more obvious to people around you and those people that are closest to you. But feeling moody and low and overwhelmed during or before exams is often normal and is a symptom of exam stress. It can sometimes be more than exam stress, and it may be more of a symptom of depression. And research does show that academic stress does lead to reduced wellbeing, an increased likelihood of developing depression or anxiety. So you might be experiencing more than exam stress if, say, for more than 2 weeks or more, you've had a low mood for most of the day, lack of interest in the things you used to enjoy, changes in your eating and sleeping patterns, feelings of worthlessness or hopelessness, poor concentration, or maybe thoughts of hurting yourself. These symptoms do indicate that you may be experiencing something more than just a low mood, and it might look like something like depression.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. We don't necessarily see it within ourselves. So as let's say a parent or even a friend that might notice some of these changes in someone they love, or of course is just a friend, how can we, if we notice these low moods or stresses or anxiety levels, and that they've changed for that person, what can we do? What should we be doing for that person?
I guess one of the most important things is to try and talk to your teenager about what's going on for them, and when doing that, really take a position of sitting back and listening to how they're feeling, and then being able to reflect back to them what they've actually said to you can be very helpful in terms of they feel very heard and they might feel validated. Of course, if they are struggling and they're wanting to get support, just helping them to reach out to services such as Headspace to get some professional support. There are other things that parents can do, of course. That's like providing just support and connection for your young person. Any social connection is an incredibly protective factor against depression and other mental health challenges. Encouraging your teen to join in some simple activities, maybe eating meals together, giving them opportunities to chat or just hang out with yourself. Encouraging them to continue to engage with their friends, because strong friendships boost our self-esteem and increase feelings of belonging and hope, which are really important for the teenagers. And encouraging them to spend time with their friends, which is something they may not be doing during this time. Trying to be available to talk. Your teen might not want to talk to you when you want them to. And while it's not helpful to push them when they're not wanting to, it's important that they know that you're going to be there for them when they are ready to talk. And sometimes even having a close adult friend or a relative can be easier for them to talk to. So maybe considering someone outside the family that they can reach out to. Encouraging them, as I said, to continue to doing the things that they enjoy. Tendency when you have a low mood is to withdraw from activities that you do enjoy. So it's really important to encourage them to persist through that. Encourage good self-care again, sleep, diet, exercising regularly, and managing your own emotions and responses to your child. So parents provide a model to their children of coping skills. So the way you handle your own emotions is crucial. And well, it's important to be true to your own self in these situations and your own emotions. You're not trying to hide your concern, but it's really important to remain calm so that your teen feels confident that they can get through this okay.
Yeah.
And just being patient.
Yeah, I think that's a real good advice in terms of that patience. Because, a lot of our teens, mums and dads want to, automatically put on the carer role and want to fix everything. And sometimes we just can't fix things straight away for them. And we worry ourselves because they're not communicating with us. So I think what you're saying is modelling our own behaviours and being as calm as we can and trying to guide them is a really good foundation to possibly getting more help. So as a parent, say if we've been able to do that and work through and have our team connect with us a bit more, what would then be the parents' next step to get them more help? I mean, I know we can just call Headspace, but should they be starting with their GP or can they come straight to Headspace?
Well, they can come straight to Headspace for sure. And we are obviously a youth-friendly organisation for young people aged 12 to 25 years of age. Often school counsellors are a really good starting point for students to get support. And as you said, also GPs can be a very helpful starting point. And then the GPs will often provide other services for them to get support, such as Headspace. Headspace is a free or a low-cost service. So it's accessible to all people. All that is required is a phone call or drop in by the centre that's closest to you. And the only thing is you require a mental health care plan from the GP, which is billed under Medicare to access the services. There are other community services out there for young people and families. There's Beyond Blue, and they have online forums as well and web chats. Lifeline offer counselling services and online services as well. And there are many digital and online services that are available, such as eHeadspace or Reach Out is one, Brave by Beyond Blue, or eCouch and Mood Gym. So not all young people want to come in to do face-to-face, to get face-to-face support. So often the online services can be a good starting point for those young people. Telephone support by a kids helpline and Lifeline is available. And there are apps that are available for everybody. They might be like Smiling Mind, Headspace, Breathe. There's Worry Time, which is by Reach Out. And in the community, there's also private psychologists and counsellors that people can get support from.
Great, that's fantastic. It's so much better nowadays than it was, let's say, 20 years ago when the services were quite limited. So it's really great to know that there are so many services and so many different ways that we can connect with other people to get the help that we need. Because, I mean, this is not just an issue around exams, of course. Many students, may feel anxious or stressed or depressed, throughout their school life. So, it's good for those students who are watching us that aren't even in Year 12 that may be going through some issues get the information you're giving, which I'm really thankful for. In saying that, we haven't really talked much about depression, but how different is depression to anxiety or stress?
Depression is primarily a mood disorder, or a mood issue, I should say, really. And it refers to an experience when you're feeling down most of the time, or you have a low mood. And as I mentioned before, you lose interest in the things you usually enjoy. And similarly, you also have changes in your sleep and your appetite. Often have changes in your level of motivation, and generally withdraw from other people.
I think that would be a really difficult thing for somebody to be living with and to be dealing with. And, parents especially watching their children go through this it is very difficult. And in saying that, if you've got an 18-year-old, at the end of year 12, some students are 18. So they don't necessarily need to tell mum and dad about some of the things that the programs they might be accessing. But as a parent, if you've got a student that's a son or a daughter who seems to be going through something like this, but they don't want to, have you involved. What could a parent do to stay at arm's length, but be also helpful in the same vein? Because we know, some students just don't want anybody involved whatsoever, especially when it comes down to depression.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very difficult situation when you see your child struggling. Very hard for any parent, but the child may not be ready yet to get some support. And it's hard to know as a parent. Then what do you do? And I think, look, there are many things that parents can do, and I think previously mentioned some of them, and that's just around that providing support and connection with your young person, and encouragement to continue to do the things that they enjoy, to go out with friends, to eat together with a family, providing opportunities to come together. Maybe they're spending a lot of time in their bedroom, helping them draw them out of their bedrooms and to connect with other people. They may not want to, but just encouraging that, and promoting that, and being available to talk when they're ready. Often you find that young people, they're not necessarily wanting to talk when we want them to talk, but it might be when you're driving them somewhere that they start to open up, or opportunities where it's not maybe face-to-face with them, sitting down and talking, but you could be side by side doing an activity together. Side by side, drying the dishes, or driving a car. Just be available to talk and really listen.
Okay.
And in saying that as well, managing your own emotions through the process, because it is really difficult as a parent, because we're wired to worry and protect our children. So the calmer we are, and the more positive we are, that is going to directly influence how your child perceives their ability to cope, and how serious or how bad the situation is for them.
Okay. And in your experience, do you find that young people talk to their peers about their struggles, or not necessarily?
In my experience, it's becoming a lot more common that young people start sharing with each other about their mental health challenges, and saying that it seems to be more common with females. But the conversation around mental health is out there. It's out there in schools. Young people these days have a lot more language around mental health than, say, when I was young. And it seems to be a lot less stigmatized than it was in previous generations. So they're a lot more aware that not only do they need to look after their physical health, but this mental health component is also a critical part of their well-being. So yeah, I think it is coming a lot more common.
And that's sort of nice to know, that students are also looking after students in this space, because years ago, as you said, that didn't happen, and people who struggled through more than just the normal exam stress were really left out in the cold by not just a system, but by friends, and in some cases family, who didn't quite understand what this that was happening to their sons, daughters, and so on. So, it is so nice that we're all starting to rely on each other a little more, and be able to get help from each other, which is great. It's really great to know that students between 12 and 25 have got such great services out there that they can that they can access. Is there one thing that one bit of advice you could give students who are going through some kind of mental health crisis, and their parents, how they help? Is there anything else that you could certainly pass on to our audience today?
I would encourage young people that are struggling with their mental health during HSC and exam periods to reach out to somebody to talk about what's going on for them, whether that be a parent or a trusted friend, school counsellor, GP, just to be able to connect with someone and share this, what's going on for them. And, if possible, if they're in that right space, to maybe seek some professional support. So they're not feeling alone, basically. Just the sheer fact, often we find it's a sheer fact of reaching out and booking an appointment at Headspace can often alleviate a lot of anxiety and help to lift mood. Just knowing that there's some help out there brings with it some hope.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So it's really good. I think we've learned today that stress around exams is normal. If we're going through anything a lot more than just around that exam time, that day, then it goes on for a couple of weeks, then that could be something we need to watch out for. It's good to know that there's so many services, as I said before, out there for young people. And also, I guess there would be support services for parents too, to help their students or sons and daughters through. Yes?
Yeah, no, there are support services for parents. At Headspace, we encourage parents to be involved in the support of their children. That doesn't necessarily mean being part of the sessions, although we do offer family therapy here as well. But just connecting in with the service providers as well at Headspace. But there's support for parents through services such as Relationship Australia, which again is a low-cost or free service around Australia. And I know in our area here in the Northern Beaches, we've got the Manly Family Services, which is a free service for parents and for young people should they choose to come. So, there is support out there.
Fantastic. That's really good. That's really good to know too, because, quite often you hear different ones or different friends even or family, talk about the different mental health issues that they've seen or experiencing. And they, as parents, are thinking, well, how am I going to deal with this? Where do I get help? Because what next? It's such a minefield. I think, having somewhere like Headspace that we can even just ring for free instead of having to make all these different appointments through GPs and so forth. I think it just makes it that much more accessible. I want to thank you very much for being with me today, Jane. It's really fantastic information. It really just sort of sets everybody's mind at ease that, yes, there can be normal stress around exams, but please, if you do need extra help, please reach out, speak to parents, speak to counsellors, speak to professionals that can help you through this.
Yeah.
Thanks
Thank
again.
you very much, Trudy. And I wish all the HSC students the best luck in the world.
Thank you, Jane. Thanks for that.
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate it.